Hey guys, today's story is about a hoarder of NPCs. So I'm playing a 5th edition D&D campaign with my roommate, Tom, who is DMing. And even though it's his first time DMing, he's knocking it out of the park. However, we unfortunately have a player who's kind of being a that guy. The player in question, we'll call James, had a rough start because he made an evil character in a good aligned game. That character in question has since been written out, but it already set a bad precedent. A few sessions after James introduced his second character, the city we called home came under siege, and the party set out to save who they could during this violent attack, including a little girl who was about 7 who was crying for her mom. James's character picked the girl up, and we evacuated her and a handful of other civilians into the sewers, where the Thieves Guild was located. Here, James insisted on keeping the girl around in order to protect her and train her to become a hunter. There were 5 other people playing the game, one of whom was absent for the session where we saved the girl. 3 of the remaining 4 were against keeping her, myself included. The 4th was neutral on the issue. Tom also wanted to leave the girl behind. However, he spoke with James privately and relented, and he let her stay on board, to the capacity of a non-speaking animal companion. According to Tom, if James wasn't allowed to keep the girl, he would have become moody and sour the experience for the whole group. This wasn't even the first time that James had guilt-tripped Tom into letting him do something that everyone else didn't want him to do, but getting into those other instances would double the size of this story. This was the second time James rescued a small character. His evil one did the same to a goblin in order to protect it, and kept it bound with ropes. It also wouldn't be the last time, because in the session after the siege, James's character kidnapped a kobold in the sewer in order to protect it. I told Tom in private that I wasn't going to let James start a collection of smalls, because I didn't want to be caught in a pinch and have to waste heals on creatures with a low AC and hit points, when I could instead be helping my party members. Tom realized my frustration, but ultimately shot me down. In the next session, James started to begin to roleplay the girl, despite Tom insisting that she would only behave as an animal companion. I was already a little annoyed by this point, and later down the road, I opted to free the kobold, and James immediately chased after it, so he could keep it with us in order to protect it. He followed that up with 6 words that no self-aware TTRPG player likes to hear. "It's what my character would do!" I lost my patience. James was disregarding what we were saying to him, both in and out of character. And I told James outright that because we let him keep the girl, who was supposed to be a silent NPC, we, the players, wouldn't let him continue to build this collection of defenseless small critters. More than half the players said that they hadn't wanted him to keep the girl as it was, and this had continued to be a point of contention for the past few weeks, and I was doing my best to take it in stride. However, it was becoming pretty apparent that I was fighting a losing battle. I apologize for such a lengthy post, but this has been bumming me out for over a month now, and it's nice to get it out. I want Tom to take the rest of the players' input into account, but the DM's word is law. I also want to stress the point that I know that there's no right way to play D&D, and it's important to let everyone have their fun, but this entire situation has me wondering if I'm the jerk for being so frustrated about it. To add to this, to clear up some confusion, I'm not against adopting NPCs if it feels organic, since I've been in games where that has happened in the past. However, neither the goblin, the kobold, or the girl came along willingly, which was part of the problem. And lastly, I've spoken to Tom again regarding the girl, and this time he seemed much more receptive and even admitted that he felt like introducing her at all had been a mistake. I said that if the kid was here to stay, we should at least make a plot hook out of her. I also ran a few ideas past him for this, and he was on board. He seemed most receptive to the idea that the girl's family put a bounty out for the adventurer that kidnapped her, and with any luck, that will see fruition. I've also suggested that we sit James down and talk about taking a few levels of Druid or Ranger, so he can get some sort of animal companion that's actually an animal. And finally, if anything else noteworthy comes up, I'll be sure to update you. Well guys, as a DM you need to have a little bit of a backbone. Confrontation sucks, but when someone is doing something that you don't want them to, you have to speak up and make them stop. And if they don't, or you're too afraid to actually tell them because of their reaction, you might have to get rid of them, or remove yourself from the equation. Tom should have put his foot down very early on, and tell James no, rather than let it slowly boil over. And even with James being a not very great player, a lot of this is falling onto the DM, especially when he's been told by other players, and then promptly ignored them. But, in any case, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, maybe think about subscribing and joining my Discord to chat and hang out with other people. But, as always, have a good one.